I accidentally set it for kids and then
I-
I got any
I-
alerts.
I love that Randy got an electronic signature now.
Musical chairs.
Wow, look
I
at
think it's
this
gonna be a long
technology.
evening.
It's always the same thing we do. It drives me nuts, but I'm not going to get involved.
Yep, it's working.
Yeah, it's working, Bruce. All right. All right, thank you, thank you. Wait for Matt to work his way back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Camden Select Board meeting for November 30th, 2021. Before we get into our agenda, I wanted to just make everybody aware, as we always do, that we're broadcasting on YouTube, cable channel 1303, and we also have a Zoom connection for anybody who wants to connect to the meeting via Zoom, via phone or video. The connection is on the agenda for this meeting, which can be found on the Camden website under Select Board and meeting packets for November 30th. Just as an update or note, please, those on Zoom, we would respectfully request that you notify, make sure you have your name so we know who you are. If you have any questions during the meeting, please use the Q&A function. That's the most efficient for us. If you want to comment on an agenda item or participate in any way. Alternatively, please raise your hand. There are instructions also if anybody wants to call by phone and how to log in that way and participate. So with that, I will move into our agenda, and the first item is a public input on non-agenda items. BDUS first.
I'm going to pull this down so I'll be a little more audible. B.D. Parker, Washington Street, Camden. I'm here by chance, but when I got here, I found the text of what I'm speaking about on your board, which flashes on about what the Cemetery Association is going to do, and I think it's a big mistake. They want to shave the cemetery, basically. And I have a long history with this. I tried to work with them on trees over the years and basically gave up because I felt their interest was having enough funds to mow and rake the leaves. And that was it. And that they're not probably getting very much money from people being buried because people aren't being buried very much. And my feeling, besides that you shouldn't allow them to shave the cemetery, it's a beautiful place. It's an incredible view. It should be a quiet park, if possible. People should know how lovely it is, how traditional it is, how much it is a part of your history. And taking the trees out makes it no longer a traditional New England cemetery. So aside from that, which I hope you can do something about.
Can you just, what did you mean exactly by shave the cemetery?
They want to,
Trees.
they're going to cut the trees and the shrubbery, period.
Some of them, some of it, not all of it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
know,
say whether it's all or not. But
Yeah.
I feel they should, I've been asking them for years to consider putting trees back that came down over the years. And they consider trees a nuisance. I mean, they really do. I would probably be on the Cemetery Association if it was more compatible. But
Would you be interested?
not at present at all. And it's pretty much the same feeling that I got 30 years ago. You know, it's a damn nuisance, those damn trees.
I think there's been a little bit of evolution
Well-
there, but yeah, it's a,
You can
it's,
talk
yeah,
about that, but I don't really feel like being, you know,
I know.
the odd egg.
That's the way I feel
Yeah.
about that and the trees sometimes
So
too.
I think you ought to think about it as a town and have a plan. Way back, I did get some trees planted along the edge. I think that they maybe were moved. I'm not sure. Some of them look like they survived. I had a plan to put some in on the avenue, which is closest to the town where you can see the old tree holes because it sinks in. No interest whatsoever. I propose that since money seems to be a problem, besides just feeling that trees don't belong except in the forest for paper and lumber, that you might consider putting them somewhere in Parks and Rec so that maybe some money came in or helping them with money. My thought is that it really is a lovely park. It's just a lovely place. Probably should not have dogs, you know, and that would be it. It would be a quiet place. So I don't really have the energy to make this happen.
Understandable. We'll make sure it's passed on, information is passed on to the, through the liaison to the committee, and they can, you know, you'll feel free to attend as a non-member of the committee meetings or the association.
If I get a lot of energy and a lot of chutzpah, I might, but I feel it tastes chutzpah.
Okay, all right,
I don't really want to spend what I got left
got it, I got it.
on that.
I think though, just as the liaison to that committee, I know that a lot of people do share your feeling
Then
about
why
the
is this
trees.
happening?
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad that you're bringing it up.
And you had it, you know, and there's a notice in the town office too. I just can't believe.
And that's the illicit plantings maybe that they've identified. Anyway, thank you for bringing this
I
up.
can't understand very well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I don't know specifically which ones they're talking about. And I think you're right that it would be good to figure that out.
Well, I don't know, the text
Well-
should come back here.
No, but there, I think as we've been talking about the Conservation Commission a lot as well, and town tree inventories and,
We're going to do this soon. You can't wait for
Okay.
the formation of the commission. You
Well,
have
we need
to.
to find that out, BD,
Yep.
and we will.
We'll follow up on that.
Thanks for bringing it up, I appreciate it very much, and you're always your interest, thank you.
By chance, and then I read it on the board.
Well, thanks for coming, good to see you, BD. Mr. Haskell, you had your hand
right.
up, please.
Mark Haskell from up on Pearl Street. Couple of things. Allison, I want to thank you for putting the thing about the yellow bags up on Facebook today. I was going to bring one tonight and ask you to demonstrate how to open one. It's been a pain for quite a while. First one. Second one, several weeks ago, you were talking about parking on the public landing.
Yeah.
And I was on the Parking Traffic Transportation Committee at the time when we did a full proposal for a kiosk and paid parking down there. And had it been implemented at the time, it was going to bring in enough income to pay for the parking officer for the summer. And we got so badly shot down by people who, one gentleman said he'd lived here for 50, 60, 70 plus years, and he was not going to accept paying to go down and park down there. So if you would like to, I'll be glad to talk with anybody about what we came up with at that point in time, at some point in time. Okay? Another couple of quick things.
Sure.
Talking about trees. Whoever did the trimming down by the public landing, I think they should be thanked. I think it opened it up and improved the view immensely. And I also think that the island down there in the middle of the, should be somehow trimmed back some. Not clear cut, but it should be trimmed back, and it would improve the area immensely. So if they want to cut some trees, that's a place they could do some trimming. Okay?
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Mark.
the Beavers got some of them.
Are there
But
any other comments in public, please, sir? If you kindly identify yourself.
Speak without a mask?
You may.
Thank you. I have a question first. Daniel Gabriel, 24 Lime Rock Street in Camden. My wife, Rebecca Gabriel. I was wondering if it would be appropriate to read a statement about the issue of the trees at the landing, which I have owned up to doing some of what was listed. And then I realized late that is on the agenda, what our attorneys have been negotiating. And then you stated that this opening comments are for non-agenda items.
Right.
May I,
Well, just so you know, Daniel, that item will be on the agenda on December 14th.
okay, so it's
So
not tonight.
I suggest, we're always welcome to say anything you want, but I suggest that would be more appropriate time for bringing anything you want to bring to the table at that point.
Well, I was advised that your attorney wouldn't be here and my attorney need not be here.
Right.
So I was not, I know this isn't a judicial body and it's not a trial of question and answers.
Right.
But I would like to speak to the select board who was
Sure.
given an oath to,
Sure.
execute the will of the people and that. And basically, I have not been afforded the right of due process. I have never been asked a question. I have never been asked to point out anything, and yet the citations are on page 1, and everybody weighing in. There even was an attachment on the online article of the letter that was sent with the attorney, and he felt free to have some commentary on there, as well as the roads and trees. And I have never had the opportunity to speak about it. To anybody asking me a question, my owning up to it was immediate and truthful. And then when the citation came out, the citation was never served to me. It was never sent by certified mail. And that yet it had a thread in it of, a penalty per day that I didn't respond. Well, how would they even know I got it? So I feel I just need to make a statement. I need to get a good night's sleep and
I'd like
get this off my chest.
I was going to.
Please, if you would like to make a statement, the only difference between talking now and the 14th is a non-agenda item. We're not going to address it because it's not an
Right,
agenda.
and
But
I'm
if you'd
not
like to read
here-
a statement, please do so.
If I need to go in more depth on the 14th when it is an agenda
Fine.
item, if I need
But
to be there.
please, if you have a written statement, that's fine. If not, just go from there.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Like I said, my name is Daniel Gabriel. My wife is Rebecca. We've had Mariner's Restaurant for 40 years. Becky is also teaches school for 25 years, 6th grade at MET, as well as working weekends and the summer at the restaurant. We've raised 4 kids in this community, and they have worked their way through. Our 2 youngest are also teachers in the district right now. If you don't know us, please ask someone that does. We will own 100% of what is said about us in this town. And I need not go any further. But we have served this community for 40 years. We have opened our business and our home and the Rock, our basketball court, to everyone that has come along. And I just say that because I felt like all this mess that I got into, any of that just didn't seem to matter. And I'm not above the law, and I'm not denying what I did. But as soon as my kids told me, Dad, it's all over social media, I'm digitally, I have no presence. I'm the only man I know that doesn't have a cell phone, and I just don't live in that world. I go to work every day. I immediately called Detective Andrick to say, listen, if this is blowing up like this, I got to tell you what I did, but I also need to tell you what I didn't do. So if I may just approach that right now, please. On the Sunday before the Tuesday, the 28th of September, when I left work, I left out the back, I walked to work, and I noticed that someone had cut some of the limbs off the trees where there's a picnic table under there. And I said, great, I was so glad to see that. because it was a mess back there, and it's a mess on the island, I agree. And I really believe that there's some deliberate neglect of that, and because people have asked and asked for years that can we do something about that? You know, we do pay an exorbitant amount of taxes for water view and waterfront, and yet if this stuff is growing up in front of us and we don't get to see it, you know, we just haven't had any luck with that. And so, but I'm not going to bring a personal or political edge into this, although those undertones are there. The first thing I said to Detective is that I cut back under our deck and some trees that were growing through our deck. I've done that for 40 years. I've kept that up back there. Once a week, I get in that little channel where things get stuck in there, and I have a black bag always behind the door of the staircase, and with the junk that gets in there, I take pride in that back there and in the beauty of our town. I don't think that can be questioned. We have had trouble with people sleeping back there, and this is the back access from our deck behind once a tree and the steps and the. I've had trouble with kids partying back there, and the last time the pond was drained for any amount of time, there was somebody was cooking. Somebody had a campfire under our deck and our kitchen, which is our livelihood, and my daughter lives upstairs. So that's why I keep that clear. For years and years, I have cut those trees back there, and no one's ever said anything. But everything is on a hair trigger now about that area, and, you know, I stepped in it, and I owned up to that. But I said, I did not cut down any trees. And then that citation comes out, and the list of what was done, you know, when I realized that more had been done than I did, and I went and checked on it the next day, I said, oh boy, because it looked like somebody came along and lopped off a few more beauties and left them in the water. I did not do that. I would not do that. Everything that I had cut, I put in a wedge that I have done for years. It's a tree that's growing out from under our deck, and I wedged the branches in there. There's a beaver that lives in that, under that waterfall at the bottom, and he would strip those greens in less than a week, and I'd carry out a pile of sticks. It's happened. If you've ever run into that fella on high water on that back steps, they're huge, they stink, and their teeth are as big as piano keys, and they're orange. And if you look at the trees, they're cut not with a saw, with the beaver's teeth. He's taken out more than I took. And then there was that lilac there that was growing. You had to get through it to get onto our walkway. And it was entangled in the vines, and I cut them back, and I admit that. And when I looked at the trees that had been trimmed over the picnic table, there was a branch on each one of them that was sticking out, and I took them off, and I admitted that. And everything that I did was right there. When I read that citation about 90 branches and 7 trees, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry I put the road and tree guy in that place. I did not know about Atlantic Avenue and that whole mess. I'm not some millionaire that just went hell-bent with a chainsaw and a bulldozer. And then my family and I had to suffer the humiliation of a document, and I agree, it's a public document. If the town wants to release it, they release it. I haven't seen too many others like that, but I have to than show up in my job and on the street and in the stores. And I tell you, it ripped my heart out. And I can't imagine if it would have been something that I hurt somebody or stole something or something like that. I cut a few branches off. And the amount of the fine was off the charts. And I don't know what to do. I've never been able to even address this. Of course I had to hire an attorney because you have an attorney. But anything in the negotiations, because the fine was so high and so unrealistic about what I did, then even negotiating it down without just looking stupid and submitting some, what I would think would be a realistic fine, was so far from it that, you know, our attorney was even hesitant to do that. So they have come to somewhat of an agreement, but everything that gets lessened by the fine is increased in my legal fees, and it's overwhelming. And frankly, you know, I don't know what to do. And it's almost like I just have to carry it out until I could stand before a judge in civil court. And without my acknowledging what I did and owning up immediately, who would know? In court, I can take my constitutional right and not implicate myself. And there is no case. But I'm not like that. And so I'm glad that that is not on the docket tonight.
No.
I will ask my attorney what else I can do. But we have been scratching and clawing our way for these last 2 years in the worst time in the world to own a restaurant. And we're a restaurant. It's our business. That's our livelihood. But I also believe that Mariners is a community operation. We've given away more meals than some people have served on that street. And we didn't live our lives like this thinking, oh, someday down the line I might make a mistake and I really need this goodwill in our back pocket. We did what we believe. We lived what we believe. And I made a mistake. And the penalty does not fit the crime. It does not fit what I did. And it was not a concentrated effort. It was not a covert operation by any organization or that. It was me alone, and whoever cut those first ones, it made a big difference. Whoever came by and finished the job, it really screwed everything up. And if it was people that I knew, I would say something to them, and hopefully they would own up. But apparently not. And it's not my job to find that out. But I spoke the truth, and that's all I can do. I'm not here looking for praise or pity. I don't know what I'm going to do with a fine like that at this time of the season and of the year of trying to run a restaurant and what we've had to face. But being silent, I have not spoken to anyone about anything or anybody else.
Understood.
The community support has been overwhelming and humbling. Many people have offered to do a GoFundMe and that, and we declined because nothing unfortunate happened to us, or we didn't live through a tragedy where that stuff is needed. And I respectfully ask them to not do that. And then it looks like I'm putting together a war chest to fight all sorts of political battles. And it's none of that. And I didn't hide. I did it in broad daylight. I took a Tuesday, was my first day off in 90 days in a row, and that's what I felt was important. I waved to the town guys in the truck that came right there to pick up the trash. I could have picked up my branches and put them in their thing and saved a $500 cleanup fee. So I don't know what to say, but I had to say something because this is the board that I need to address. The appeals board, it may come to that, and that's a different thing. Civil court or superior court, it may come to that, but I have not been afforded due process, and I've been branded guilty by online, everything out of the town office, everything in the newspaper, without even the opportunity to prove innocence, much less being considered innocent until proven guilty, and which would be difficult if I didn't tell what I did. There's no way that that list could fit under that tree. And why is it such the crime of the century this year when I've done it every year? And
Daniel, I think, first of all, I'm glad you came. I think it was good for you to express what you've just talked about. By the way, I don't know of any person in this town I've ever heard of thinks nothing but the Gabriels being stand-up people. We got that. And by the way, your being here tonight reinforces that. We will, and we have to address this as a consent agreement item that we just received actually yesterday, I believe, via emails. That's why it's not on the agenda tonight, because I insist it get on the packet well before the meeting, so public has the ability to see what's going to be on the select board meeting for next week, kind of a thing. That's why it's not on tonight. Otherwise, I'd love to be able to discuss it tonight, but we will, and I would certainly want you and Rebecca, is it? I got one right. That would come back on the 14th, and we would continue this discussion because it's very important to us. Also, it's complicated, and we do want to respond to your comments, but we're not going to do that tonight.
I understand, but just being able to speak.
But honestly, thank you for coming, and thank you for.
One more item that I need to share, please. Unknown to me, a prominent tree and landscape person went to the town immediately after this happened, even before I called, even before the citation, and offered to take care of whatever needed taking care of on that. And he was told, no, thank you. Then the citation came out, and he made the effort to go back and say, listen, I will take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. And even though it just seems so far beyond what happened, and he was told, no, thank you. They needed to teach me a lesson and make an example of me. And, you know,
I've got to respond to that. That is absolutely not what was said.
All right,
Yeah,
we're not going to. I appreciate.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't not
no,
let that go.
that's fine.
Yeah.
This is why it's more appropriate that we have this discussion on the 14th, because we want to have an interplay. But I still thank you for coming. We thank you for coming, and both of you, and pouring your hearts out to us. But like I said, I'm saddened that it's taken personal, but this is not personal. This is town business, and we have and do. You're referring to citation. I believe you're referring to a consent agreement, which was mailed to you, and then your lawyer has been negotiating with our lawyer back and forth, I presume. I'm not privy to those conversations either.
We haven't been involved in any of this.
We haven't been involved in any of the discussion at all today. No, at all.
They don't.
No, and we have a long list of ordinance enforcement that we've done over the last years, at least as long as I've been on the board, and I'm sure before that. But thank you for coming, both of you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again and having more of a dialogue on the 14th. And in the meantime, take a deep breath.
I just want to say one thing. I just want to say, until today, until I read the consent agreement, I don't think it was publicized to us or anybody else that you were not responsible for all of the damage. I didn't learn that until today. So I just want to say that's out there now. And
It is.
I appreciate your coming And, you know,
But I have to cut it off now. We've been going too long, and I've got an agenda to complete. But we feel you, Daniel. Thank you for coming. Thank you. For any other public comment before we get into the rest of our agenda? Not seeing any hands, we'll revert to item number 2, which is a public hearing for the Hearthstone Enterprises at 41 Elm Street for a Class 1 hotel license. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to? Okay, good. I need to do a little spiel before you do that, because if there's nobody here, I skip it. So, but the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the public to provide input to the select board in its deliberation for licenses of this nature. I will open the public portion up and ask anybody who wants to speak from the public to speak to us, the select board. Provide any input you want, for, against, or just neutral about the item at hand. Please be courteous. Please be brief. We'd appreciate that. All questions from the public will be through myself as chair. And when all the public has had an opportunity to speak, I will close the public portion and revert to discussion by the select board for a decision. There will be no input from the public unless a select board member has a question of anybody who has spoken previously from the public. So with that, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak to this item? Please come up. If you would kindly identify yourself.
do it up
to the speaker, please. The microphone picks it up there.
My name is Megan Bruns. I've been worked at the Hearthstone Inn for 5 years, and I've been general manager now for 3 years. We recently sold and got new owners with very little notice, and I'm just trying to take care of all the paperwork and get our licenses so we're up and running, because I think we're a big part of this town. We serve guests from out of state, obviously out of town, and locals for dinner and curbside.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for coming and taking the interest, obviously, what's very important to you all. With that, I don't see any other hands, so I will close the public hearing portion and revert to select board deliberation.
I would like to make a motion that we make her job easier and approve the Class 1 hotel license for Hearthstone Enterprises at 41 Elm Street.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion from the board. Questions from the board? Not seeing anything. All those in favor?
There you go, Megan.
You're very welcome. We wish you the best of luck, as did the Salmons have before our current owners. And I said we wish you all the best of luck, as we knew the Salmons, all of us, very well before they're selling the restaurant. But I'm sure, and the end, it's a fantastic place. Thank you. You're welcome. On to our action items for the night. We have the first item under action items is the approval. We have two revocable license agreement, both related to the undergrounding or partial undergrounding of power. The first we have is for CTCA LLC at 14 Erie Avenue for underground power. The license agreement is in the packet. Is there anybody here that wants to speak to that? I don't see anybody. So, board, any discussion regarding that revocable license?
I thought it was interesting we're doing a license with a corporation in Texas, but that was interesting to me. But other than that, reading through it, I'll make a motion that we approve the revocable license agreement for CTCA LLC at 14 Erie Avenue for underground power.
A second.
Motion made and second. Discussion. Allison.
So Erie Ave, when that's brought up, it like triggers in my mind kind of like mistakes from the past or things that I wish I had asked more questions about to begin with. When that was the one that we almost gave away, right? Yeah. And I remember that when it came to us and was presented as.
Can you back up? When you say almost gave away, what are we defining as almost gave away?
So there was a few.
Discontinuing it as a public road and letting the rights convey to the adjacent property owners.
Oh, Jeremy, to the.
Yeah, so it's, one of these things that comes to us sometimes that, we don't really know, like, hold on, what's really going on here, one of these agreements. And remember that when that was proposed, it was like, oh, well, it makes sense. This is a road that's not really used by the town anymore. It's mostly all on private property. It was a bunch of different parcels that got sort of put together, and it was like, well, the town's not going to have to pay to plow it anymore, do anything, and we were all like, okay. And it didn't trigger in me thoughts of like, why would the town want to preserve this? And we went through the whole thing. I had to go to town meeting, and I'm still not sure whether that was the right or the wrong approach, but I know that when we got to the town meeting, a couple people got up and said, I love that road, and I walk my puppy on there, and it changed the whole course of things. And then somebody else got up and said, for long-term planning purposes, this is really a mistake that the town is doing this, and we should retain all of these right-of-ways. And I thought, gosh, how did I not ask more questions about this when it came to the select board? And so I'm just wondering, Audra, is there anything here? I don't think this is another one of those situations where maybe somebody with more knowledge could point out to us, this might be a reason why you wouldn't sign something like this. But can you think of any reasons why we wouldn't agree to this?
No, and this is, I guess for Matt and Sophie, you have seen one of these. It was the shrub fence on Chestnut Street, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a peculiar legal precedent that's been set in the town of Camden, and there's been a lot of buy-in from residents and local attorneys to issue these revocable licenses for the purposes of doing things. I think the underground power is probably the best example of when it's appropriate. It just kind of institutionalizes that it's there. It lets everyone know that their infrastructure is in the town's right of way, and that's town property and not theirs. So, it's sort of a good way of retaining our rights over the right of way or the travel lane, whatever it is. And also, allowing these sorts of projects to move forward. So,
Well, it clearly has a less visual impact than the second one does. There's no poles involved, and it's a very logical approach. It's also, done well, I think, in terms of the layout. And by the way, this is a revocable license.
Right.
It has a 90-day ability to revoke this if for any reason we decide to revoke it. Sophie.
So I guess, the only question I have is, by allowing to have underground electrical wires under Erie Avenue, does that create any liability or obligation of maintenance for the town? Does that change the destination of the land above?
They have to maintain it.
They have to maintain it. Okay.
Other questions?
I would just note that the buried cable specifications are included in both of these, and they are quite extensive in terms of what the specifications are in terms of safety.
Yeah, actually, to me, from experience, the safety of undergrounding is much better than poles and wires. Anyway, Mark, do you have a comment? No.
I come from a country that buries lines everywhere, so I still can't understand.
Why we don't do it?
Well, we don't do it because we have rocks. That I understand. But it's still,
Any new developments in this country that are of major are all undergrounded today.
Yeah.
It's whatever, that's a debate.
Really? All new developments?
Well, all the ones I've ever been involved in, California,
well,
New Mexico,
it's
Texas.
hard to do it here. We're so close to ledge and.
That was one thing, but if you don't want to mix and match, that's expensive.
Yeah.
So when you're starting from scratch, undergrounding is the way to go. My house is underground.
And who oversees, again, in terms of specifications? Is that our code enforcement officer? How does that work when it goes into the realm of easements and that type of thing?
So they have to hire someone that's certified to do this, and the code enforcement office looks over just the part that goes onto private property.
Yeah, they kind of act like a resident engineer, a term you might be familiar with from Singapore.
And it has to go through the utility and
Yep.
everything else.
Other questions?
And they're not digging up the road to do it?
Oh, they have to dig up the road to do it.
And is it specified how they have to put the road back together? And
Yeah, so that's one, as you can all imagine, Dave St. Laurent's very involved in this because it's in the right of way. So I guess not so much the Erie Avenue project, but the one on Colcord Avenue. it had quite a bit of sort of back and forth, and Dave St. Laurent had, requirements for where he wanted that to go, so it wouldn't impact the right-of-way in a negative way for the town.
Is there any fee? Is there any fee associated with this? It seems like a lot of these agreements that we have should potentially have a fee, because just looking at the amount of staff time it takes to go into verifying that this has been done correctly and coming up with a plan and
On site and.
is there a way to develop
Absolutely.
or is that within our discretion to decide?
Yes.
But it seems like we really should be asking for something here. We're
Yeah, and I
having
would
our
say-
staff oversee it and.
It's kind of interesting because a lot of the work associated with like the code office, that's all, there's fees associated with it all. But, there's other types of licenses that we issue that have to do with, the public right of way. In my updates, I'll talk about, 2 others that were recently just approved. And, I think, like you said, all of that takes resources to review and go back and forth with the applicant and ask questions, but we don't assign any fees to that. So I think it's a good point and something that we might want to look at when we're doing the fee order in January.
Right.
Digging up the sidewalk and stuff and different things that people do, it's like parking a dumpster on the sidewalk.
Isn't there an application applied for before we get to a license agreement?
Yeah, there's an application, but there's no fee assigned to that.
That's what my question was.
Yeah.
That's where the fee should be applied, is
Right.
to the application fee, as we do with other permits and the like,
Right.
going forward.
Well, yeah, and what I'm saying is we've got a good chance to do that when we approve the fee, when, the fee order is brought in front of the select board and you approve it in January.
Yeah, I think it should be.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily, in every case, it would be the fee is with the application, because in some cases, if a contractor, like on Bayview Street, for instance, they needed the sidewalk for like a year, it seemed like, and that was just up to Audra to, in some cases, we might say, yeah, you can close down the sidewalk for a year, but there's going to be a fee associated with that, because not everybody in Camden needs to close down the sidewalk for the year in front of their house, so.
Was the application for undergrounding that they filled out, or is it an application just for right-of-way intrusion?
So there's 2 different applications. So there's road closure, and then there's sidewalk encumbrance. Neither have a fee associated with them, but this is different. This is a license agreement. So there really is no application. It's just, Bill Kelly has, kind of a standard template for this that, he uses every time it comes before you. So he just gets the necessary information and, drafts the license.
I saw an application for Erie Road.
What's
I
that?
saw an application for Erie Road.
I mean, they might have put
The reason I saw
something.
it is because in the first draft that was sent out, there was missing, wasn't referenced in Exhibit B, and I was shown the Exhibit B was on the application. So there is an application of some form. But at your point, I would agree, we should look at the categories of applications in our January and put fees on those applications, because it does cost town money to do these things.
Well, I just think that sometimes it's different. One side, and applying for, to encumber a sidewalk for a period of time, it's very different. The levels of impact are just very different. And so it might be a case where you wouldn't have the fee associated with the application. It would be some other form of.
It's hard to justify, but sometimes the application for using the sidewalk turns into trouble, which the police department has to investigate, because it's happening right now on Bayview Street.
Oh, and it's going to, and I'm going to give you an update. It's going to happen again, and it's going to be pretty significking right on Main Street.
Yep, exactly. So I think it's a good action item. I think we should absolutely, proceed with doing something in the license.
When the water company tears up the road for the whole
Well, in the
summer.
license agreements we have to sign, or applications, whoever does what to who, I don't know exactly.
Well, and this will lead into another update, and something that I put in the report that I emailed to you all this afternoon, is that we've got 3 ordinances that we started,
Right.
Oh, right.
kind of in last year, and they're all at a point where we need to bring them back for formal hearings so we can move forward with the process of getting them on the ballot for June. And one of them is the road opening.
Road closure.
Pole placement.
Oh, the road opening.
Road opening.
Ordinance. Yeah.
Road opening.
I thought that was going to be on tonight. We were going to look at that. And
We're discussing it tonight for future
Oh, is it
action.
on tonight?
Well, it's in her update. She put in her update report to see that today.
I'm preparing you all for the inevitable.
I want the dense text of the,
Yeah, well-
we had it in our packet a long, long time ago,
did,
but
we
we had
did.
so much else on our agenda that night.
did,
I don't
we
think
did.
we really, it
We
was like the
tabled it.
tannery and road opening or
Right.
something.
So with that, the board, we want to act on this license agreement?
Is this one of the ones that there was anxiety because of the timing?
Yes. It was the first.
Because I don't know that are we prepared to, I don't know that we're prepared to create fees all of a sudden for something that's already an establishment. That's something we'll have to do
Future.
in the future.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right to come back and
No, I agree
throw a
with you.
fee in,
I
so.
agree with you.
Not lucky.
I don't think we have, we don't have the structure for charge, and we need to set the structure.
That's, I mean, this is just a special agreement with the select board and a private property owner, so it's,
But I'm not going to sit here and debate what dollars should be at
$250.
this point in time.
Yeah, it's,
So either approve it as is or reject it.
okay.
yeah, they're in its current, current rules, and I don't think it's fair to backtrack. So I think we've already made and seconded the motion,
Yep.
and that was
That was
discussion.
discussion. It was. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. On to the second item, which is similar in nature, which is a license agreement with Mitchell McMillan at 6 Colcord Avenue for underground power. That license package is also in our packet. Again, a comments board. Mark.
Say, I'll start with a motion so we can have discussion to approve the underground power agreement with Mitchell McMillan at 6 Colcord Avenue.
I second.
Motion made in second. Comments? Just a very, very minor one, Audra, on that one. The Exhibit A is not labeled. That's a minor point, but just if you get that seconded, we don't need to make that part of the motion. It's pretty obvious what Exhibit A is, but it's the drawing. And basically, that's I'm taking a pole down, adding a new pole, and undergrounding to that pole, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a little different than the other one.
Okay.
Other comments, Allison?
Just the same question. Can you think of any reason why we wouldn't approve this? Is there anything bad about?
No, I mean, I think there were some issues with the initial plan that was presented, but we had town staff work with the engineer and the property owner to come up with a solution that wasn't going to be problematic for any of our infrastructure or street trees, I think in particular was the issue.
How many hours would you estimate have been spent by town staff to get to this point?
Good question. I don't know exactly. Maybe 4 if you added up everyone's time.
So a few $100.
I'm not making a judge. I'm
Oh,
just curious, like,
I'm just trying to.
how much time different things take.
Town staff
Try
and
it.
and legal too, even though we have a retainer, it's still legal.
Just, right.
So the combination, it adds up. It adds up. Other comments, board?
Just to say that Mitch was, when I was on the planning board, Mitch was amenable to many changes. He's been, again, in terms of, in consideration of the request from his neighbors, in terms of developing the property, and also keeping in mind at the time, there is no power to there are 3, it's part of a subdivision that we approved on the planning board. There is no power currently to that particular lot. So this is again, in my opinion, a sensible option in terms of running power, and also one, now that we've addressed the street trees, it seems like a really, truly strong option for providing power to that lot.
Okay, board, all those in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. The second item on our action item list is consideration of a new Vittler license for Snow Dogs, our new snowball vendor at 20 Barnestown Road.
Is that him? Thank you. Thank you. It's, yeah. Yeah. I wasn't meaning to.
But Mitch, being you weren't coming up, I figured somebody had to kind of
Yeah.
pitch for you. I was waiting, I was like, I don't know, I decided you weren't doing anything.
No, it's nice to see something happening there. I remember watching the planning board stuff, and I thought they were a little harsh on you personally. That you should have been able to make it just as high as you wanted.
See it.
But
I'm working with the architect right now in the landscaping. It's going to be just a show for
Great.
us. It's going to be beautiful.
Best of luck with it,
Lots of
Mitch.
trees, pollinator gardens, dahlia gardens, everything.
Ooh, wow, that's
We
awesome.
look forward to a garden party. Thank you, Mitch.
Bye, Mitch.
Back to our agenda. I
He's a very
didn't
nice
recognize
guy.
him.
It's like,
Make a motion.
I think we'll remember that the person doing snow dogs at the vendor came before the board a few weeks ago. And
When you
excited
approved
to
it.
have somebody providing service this year, especially because they were making snow today at the Snow Bowl. First time I've
They
seen
are?
that. Yeah, and with the cold weather, which is great, because when they get a head start, it's
Yeah.
a really good sign for a really good early season. So excited about that. So I'll make a motion that we approve the vehicular license for snow dogs at 20 Barnstown Road.
second.
Motion made and second. Any comments, board?
Just that it was checked that there's no septic or sewer there. So
No.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I feel like we've got to separate them because people obviously aren't reading the whole thing. There is absolutely septic, there's no sewer.
It's just the same, check the box. So-
Yeah.
One or the other.
It's funny, Janice brought it up with me before she left today. She's like, in case Matt asks, remind him that there is septic there, but no sewer.
All right.
Right, and the other thing would be just number 8 in terms of the health department about the hot water. I assume that is going to be a quick fix, that they're going to give them some hot water at some point in the
Oh,
near
yeah.
future. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
All right, onward. Any other comments, board? All those in favor?
Did we have a
5-0.
Did we have a second?
Yeah, I heard a second from Allison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it was second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
normally get to it.
semi-legal. You know, she doesn't get in fast enough sometimes.
First, second, I've been.
All right, Tico. Third action items as we go on. Consideration, we have committee appointments for 2 committees. One is the Pathways Committee, and the second is the Cemetery Committee, which you're a liaison for both, correct?
Yeah, this is, yeah.
If I recall, I get it wrong a lot, but, and who do we have in summary for appointments, just a,
Nancy Noyes?
Yeah, so let's start with Pathways.
Yep.
okay, Pathways first.
How many openings are there? 'Cause-
Let's just,
That was my question. How many openings are there? How many applicants do we have?
yeah, so that's a great question. And so part of me wants to,
I can answer the question for Pathways.
Okay.
There's 2 Camden openings.
2.
2.
Okay, and applicants for that are, or not?
That was just
One app?
a little bit of background there.
Please.
There are a couple, I think it's Andrew Stanchoff and is currently on, and Will Galloway is the new
See,
ones, but I think Andrew's term is up. Will has been attending Pathways Committee meetings. He's the director of the Watershed School in Camden, but he, full disclosure, is not a Camden resident, but I believe he lives in Hope.
Okay.
But I, would advocate for that not being a central part of what brings value to the
not
committee.
a-
A lot of
not a
working in
requirement.
Camden and,
Requirement, right?
right, exactly. So, there have been times when the select board has had a different philosophy, but I told the Pathways Committee that I thought this select board would be perfectly open-minded to Will. So that's great. He attended meetings for a while and was sort of knows what he's getting himself into, which is nothing but a good thing. So I would recommend that we approve him and that Andrew. Actually, need to check. Is Andrew's application in here?
In here, no.
Generally, we have the people that want to continue haven't been
reappointed?
filling out
Appointment applications.
forms, which is something that we've talked about in the past is needing to be reconsidered. There's the reason that the Pathways Committee is sort of extra focusing on making sure their membership is legit and approved and sort of has set terms by the select board is because it's our only two-town committee. And so Rockport is going through a process that, where they are really sticking to the terms and approved members. And so they've really wanted to know who the approved members are for Camden's side as part of that sort of two-town thing. Some of other committees, it's less important. Of course, all of the committee meetings are open to the public. People can participate. It's not like being a member or not a member isn't so critical. And Will's been participating without being an official member anyway.
So how many members does Camden have on the Pathway Committee?
I think each town has 4.
4. And do they have a term?
Yes, 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just slotting 2 new members for Camden.
Which
Well, only
is
one is in the
where's
packet.
Yeah. So
there's an email from Jeff Bob that explain. I think the specific request was for the purposes of the Rockport.
Correct.
Whatever, it needed to be known that
Yep.
4 of Camden's members were official, and there was a specific request for what we would do. And I believe I'm stating that correctly, but I didn't see that in the packet. There are a few other applications in the packet. I saw that as everybody probably did, Samantha Sharp just seemed like a dream volunteer. And maybe, but that it would be good I wrote her an email today actually to kind of get a better sense of what she would want to do. I mean, she'd be, if Pathways turns out to be her big thing that she was hoping to do, she could certainly be involved in that. But I do think there are a lot of other places where we would have.
I was thinking she might be great for the Conservation Commission.
I was thinking that's exactly what I wrote to her, hoping that with the mapping of the natural resources and street trees and stuff, that she could be good there. But it seems like she could be good in a lot of things.
Now, I guess the question we're trying to resolve is who are new appointees and who are we appointing that is from already there, just needs reappointment.
And I'm stating what I remember, but not what,
right.
We normally have that thing from Janice
So Andrew Stanchoff would be the reappointment.
Right.
And Will Galloway would be a new appointee.
yes.
So we only need one new appointee
Only one new,
and one upping.
one re-upping.
re-upping.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we haven't had, it. In this case, it's pretty easy because we're not really, it's not like there's somebody else really wanting to be on the Pathways Committee. So I think Andrew continuing makes a lot of sense. He's been a good participant. So I would
I should
move
make a motion.
Yes.
that we, thanks.
Yes.
Stop talking,
Please do.
Allison.
Please do.
I would move that we appoint Will Galloway and Andrew Stanchoff to 3-year terms on the Camden Rockport Pathways Committee.
Second.
Motion made and second. Other comments, Select Board? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Now to the second committee, which is Cemetery.
Cemetery. So currently there are only 2 members on that committee whose terms haven't expired. There's one vacancy, and then everybody else who's currently on that committee is interested in continuing to serve.
So you said how many people are expecting to be re-upped? What's the number, do you know?
So, would you wait a moment?
Yeah, I can.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
So with it,
Was it something you said, Bob?
So
No doubt about it.
Well, she's going, looking that up. Let's go back to Samantha again. I think she's a strong consideration for the Conservation Commission because we need to start populating that commission.
and the tech skills is something that I think we need to sort of double
She sounds
down
like
on.
like you said, a dream applicant. So I think we should either approve her for Conservation Commission to start the process or let her know, see what her reply to your email is, and maybe the next
Yeah, I
meeting
mean,
approve her.
I think we're not approving conservation, that's not on the agenda tonight. So I did send everybody finally the document that
Sorry.
gave sort of lots of stuff about the Conservation Commission, and then in the next week, I'm going
Thanks,
to
Sandra.
whittle that
Sorry, I
down.
realized while you were talking that the list I had was not current.
This is a case where we have more interest than there are spots.
In the cemetery?
Yeah, and that was, new information today, the confirmation that everybody that's on there wants to continue. But,
Cemetery.
yeah, but I don't know if they know that there's more interest. It looks like we have a couple really good applications. I don't, trying to think of a thoughtful way to,
What
Do
are,
it.
what are the people expecting re-upping? Who?
Jeff Sukforth, Chip Late, Jeff Weymouth, and Bob Oxton.
Jeff.
And how many
Weymouth,
people are on the committee?
and Bob.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7.
There's 7 people, and are there any openings right now
Yeah,
besides
there's
those?
one
Just one.
One new, and one application in our packet.
2 applications.
There is?
Yes.
I missed one then.
and we'd also had one other application another time that for some reason isn't in the packet.
We have 3 applications for the one vacant, well. we
So
have
that's
3
not that we've said in the
applications.
past, we're not going to do that. We're not just going to assume that if you want to continue,
It's not
that you
gonna happen.
automatically continue, that we ask people to go through the process again of, like, sort of similar to what we've been doing with the Harbor Committee, except for maybe even filling out something and saying,
So for the Harbor Committee, we've asked people who wanted to continue. For the Harbor Committee, we've asked people on the committee who wanted to continue whose terms are not expired because we had a 2-year hiatus to send us an email.
right,
They did.
Expressing their interest and why, what they bring to the Harbor Committee. So this way, everybody is kind of, on the same
right.
level playing field with new applicants and already existing applicants. And I think it's a fair process.
Exactly. And so getting into the, I think that we may not be in a position tonight to do a thoughtful job of giving people 3-year terms on the Cemetery Association. I was a little surprised to see was it Nancy Noyes?
Yes.
I was delighted to see Owen could bring a lot of expertise to that committee. And not having heard anything from, the other members are good too. But it might be wise to have a conversation with
Right.
them and say, what are the skills that we're looking for? A lot of the time what they've had to do is do the recruitment themselves. And I don't think they've had their doors beaten down. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable, I guess, tonight only awarding one spot to.
That's fine. I think part of it is also, I firmly believe that change on committees and changeover of members is a good thing, because otherwise they become too, I forget the word, too
There are a few
institutionalized. That's natural because you've been on the committee for 6 years. You're part of the fabric. And I think that's not the role of advisory committees. We should consider that some people need to roll off and be rotated out
And,
of
yeah.
membership.
One thing to mention is that this is one of our committees that is not just an advisory
Right.
committee. Most of what they do is advise the select board.
Right.
But it's the Cemetery Association. And they manage the trust. Most of it does come down to advising the select board, and we have final say, but.
Well, they do have their own budget that
They do.
sits separately
They do.
from town funds.
They control it.
Yes.
Well, it still has to be approved through the
But
budget process, but it's a little bit more like an assessment and some.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do we propose to do? Because when we have people showing interest in volunteering for the town, I hate postponing.
Yeah, I do too.
But I think
do
we need
too.
to have a due process for the existing member of the cemetery.
I think you're right.
I think.
But I encourage us to speedily go through that process so we can not, discourage people who are applying.
So again, you could give the fuck. You could give the, sorry, that was, that was an editorial that now just went out to the whole world that I should.
I've felt that same way.
Sorry about that. So perhaps we can, 2-week grace for those who are currently on to submit their applications. Oh, are we meeting next week?
No.
No, December 7th. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And the,
1 week to send an email. I mean, how long does it take to send an email, right?
5
1
minutes.
week send an email, so we have enough time to review and come with a proposal at the next select.
Well, there's some direct reaching out that
Yeah.
not everything is conducted over email for that committee, but we have a way of getting in touch with everyone. I think that's the only way to do it. I mean, what else are we going to do here tonight? Be like, well,
No,
we
it's
want
fine.
new people, and so we're going to just randomly choose somebody else not to, there's no other way to do it, but
But is it you as the liaison who does that, or is it Janice, or who's
Marlene is the staff
Marlene?
person
So
that-
we need to staff Marlene and make sure that she reaches out to everyone and gets either an email or a conversation, so we can.
Marlene is in contact with all of them, so
Okay.
she can.
and would we have that be the committee interest form? Or I think we should make it clear what's being asked. Maybe just the committee interest form would be the level playing field in this.
Yeah, it has to be that because
Case.
two individuals took the time
To fill it
to
out, yeah.
apply to this effort, Owen and the young lady. And I think that needs strong consideration against, you might remember, my philosophy is rotating interested parties is a good thing for any group or committee or commission.
Or select board.
Yeah, because just writing an email that says I'm interested in continuing, that, to me, that's okay, but I think they need to fill out a form so that we can take a look at it, and there would be therefore 6 potential forms in the next packet.
and it also shows a certain amount of commitment and involvement by filling out the form.
Yep.
Not asking too much.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't know if anybody wants to talk. Do we want to give?
Owen, do you want to say anything? Okay. No, I think that's fair. But it needs to be a level playing field.
Okay.
And we need to look at it as you said, Allison, it's not a blank check. Just because you've been on the committee, you continue. We need to try to, and it's not black and white, who's better and who's not. There's no such thing. It's a judgment call, but and rotation is a good thing for all of our, I've said it 3 times now, commissions and committees. So if we can get
I mean, it's not, they do, I also want to just be clear, like the whole blank check thing, it's a lot of work, that it's a little bit of a thankless
It is.
job. It's been quite well managed. There is abundant money in the trust. So going back to what Beatty said, there is, it is, there's plenty of money for it, but we also follow up on.
Okay, but just for just for our purpose tonight, we have laid down a process.
Right.
That we're asking people who are already on the committee to refill an interest form. Do we want to, so I was proposing a deadline. Do we want to add a deadline of
Oh, absolutely. We should-
next week?
It should be submitted in time for the next.
For-
select
in
board
time for the
packet,
next-
Which means it has to be in by Wednesday. I'm going to lose my days. Wednesday, no, wait a minute.
Whatever the date is for the packet.
Wednesday, December 8th is when we finalize agenda. We do the packet on the 9th for the 14th.
Okay, and Marlene is in charge of following up and making sure that all the people who are currently on this committee are aware that they need to, if,
You mean Janice?
no, we mean Marlene. We really do mean Marlene. I'm not making up
I get
names.
confused
Yeah,
really
me too. Okay, but so we do have a process.
Okay. All right.
Just to confirm, Sophie, the same process went through for Harvard.
No, the Harbor Committee, we just asked them to send an
It
email.
was just email. And
Okay, so this is where you know where I'm going with this, that we should start to set up a
a constant and
Process.
Yeah, be consistent. Consistent
Sometimes,
procedure.
yeah. But then some people might not be able to follow the process because of, digital gaps or.
Well, maybe.
We'll figure it out.
I think
this is
the Harbor Committee process was great, and that this one
That
is
was
just
email.
the necessary adaptation for the situation.
Agreed. Moving onward, then we would move on to the approval of the 2022 harbor fees, which I believe, Sophie, the Harbor Committee has addressed.
We have.
And maybe you could summarize for the board what their recommendations, if any, are on the current fees, which, as I saw them, I didn't see any change.
No, and we went through the fees line by line, and we had several, we used several points to guide, well, the Harbor Committee used several points to guide their decision. So the first one was taking into account economic hardships in the past 2 years. You know, some people, it's been a hard time, so we were trying to be fair. The second guiding point we've used was market competitiveness of Camden Harbor compared to similar harbors in the area, and make sure that we, one, remain competitive, but at the same time, Camden is a special destination so that we don't undersell ourselves on the cheap. So you are correct, Bob, that there are no changes in the fee schedule proposed. The only change we made was get rid of a redundant late payment penalty fee that appeared on 2 different lines for the same thing. So we are proposing to maintain the schedule as is. The only thing that the Harbor Committee may be proposing to change and work with the Select Board to change would be the docking fee for the cruise ships. Which is right now at $1,600.
Yeah, right, it is, and that we've debated that a number of times. But if we, Audra, we need to respond to these these cruise companies in a certain time period. So holding this as an open, we should.
No, we can approve the fee schedule as is.
Okay.
But the Harbor Committee wanted the Select Board to know that the Select Board
sure.
could change, of course,
sure.
at any point in time, the fees, especially for the cruise ship.
Who's going to change it?
Did they have
The Select Board, it's us.
Did they have a recommendation?
No, right now they
Well,
don't.
that's a nice thing to say, but realistically, Audra has to operate and be able to understand what she's going to be telling these people who want to come into Camden next summer. I don't know when that starts. Do you?
I haven't heard anything from anyone
Okay.
yet.
Okay. I mean, the point is, she could be operating as the town and somebody contacting her and say, yeah, our approved is $1,600, and somebody can come in 3 weeks later and say it's not enough. That's not going to work.
Well, sometimes things change, but,
Yeah, sometimes.
I mean, it wouldn't be like craziest thing that ever happened, but, so thanks for bringing that to our attention, because one of the sort of ongoing questions that I haven't gotten the answer to is, do we know why the cruise ships didn't come this summer? And is it possible that it is related to the fees?
No,
It's unlikely it's related to the fees.
But it would be a good thing to follow up on, because part of the fact that they didn't come, and I recognize that not everybody wants them to, but the fact that they didn't come created some other problems for, businesses that were used to meeting the cruise ships, but now people are being bussed in. A lot of the people that were visiting Camden on the ships are now just getting bussed in, and that was creating a lot of problems for us. So I would really like to figure out what that reason was, not saying that we want to just throw ourselves and, do whatever we can to get them back, but it would be a good data point to have.
Well, these fees are no higher than Rockland's.
No,
They're lower.
yeah,
So,
it's not the fees.
And we can get feedback on why they didn't come. I suspect it was virus related, or I have no idea.
I mean, I've heard some anecdotal things that I don't really want to repeat because I feel like it's useless unless we know first.
Exactly, I totally agree. But our ears to the
Task
ground.
Sophie with getting to the bottom of it.
Oh, I'd love to.
Anyway, other comments on the other comments on the fee schedule, which again I'll reiterate, is basically flat from last year,
Absolutely.
right?
Flat from last year.
One change made on this form we have here.
Exactly.
Actually, because Steve is here. Steve, roughly when do the cruise ships notify you of their schedule for the upcoming season and ask about fees?
Over the years, it's changed. Before COVID, they would rarely get in touch with me, maybe a month before they started coming. So early May, I would get an email or a call from somebody. in the past, and then they didn't run for COVID, and they didn't run last year. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty lax. I think I heard you guys talking about the fees about them. I really think that if the ACL, I think you could double your fees. They wouldn't bat an eye. They don't care. They want to go where they want to go, and I think they've intoned that they want to come to Camden next summer.
Okay. Well put, Steve. Thank you. Other comments, board, or questions? Motion?
Sorry.
That's another question.
So there was, the dinghy dock was pretty full this year, and I was happy with what we did last year, where we started a little bit of stratification, because some of those dinghies have a greater impact on the resource than others, and some of them are more like dinghies than others. Did you discuss that at all?
So we did. So we did have a long discussion, and Steve, I'm really happy you're here to back me up. So in the ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a dinghy is 14 feet or less.
Oh, imagine that.
So there is a definition for a dinghy.
There is.
And right now, it was not, we were looking at the fees, not at the stratification, not at the classification of boats. So the only issue that seems to be arising, and we have not found a solution for that, is that most kayaks, actually the best kayaks, are 14 feet and more. And they've been, yeah, but they're skinny. But
So you're gonna,
but when they get wedged,
we should go with like some other
So we're
metric.
going to figure out. I mean, I think it's another thing that the Harbor Committee is going to be thinking about, the kayak and the dinghies, and how there's a fair usage of the
Surface area.
Dinghy dock.
the dinghy dock. But right now, concerning the fees, it's 14 foot or under.
So you didn't.
And
hold
we're
on.
giving, and we kept the discount also for dinghies who are using electric motors,
Oh,
which
okay. So you didn't-
satisfies me
One
greatly.
person at a time talking.
Oh,
rather
no,
than- Finish,
sorry.
please.
I'm done. But Steve, do you want to correct me, make sure I didn't say anything wrong?
No, you made a good point. I mean, in the past, there might be some canoes that have been over 14 feet, but the old harbor committee, I remember having a discussion that they're like pencils. If tied up right, they actually take up less space.
Yep.
So, over the years, we've kind of had we've definitely had some talk about that length and the enforcement of that length.
Yeah.
Right, and but it would be good to look at other things that should be taken into consideration rather than just length. I mean, there are some of those boats are flipping over with motors, and some of them have, 25 horsepower, 40 horsepower motors, whereas some people have a paddleboard.
25 horsepower motor on a 40-foot dinghy?
14 foot, that's a pretty big motor.
That's a pretty big motor to put on a 40-foot.
Have you not seen that, Steve?
40?
Occasionally, usually those are the boats that come off. They're visiting from like 80-foot yachts, 100-foot yachts that are anchored, and the crew will come in with a 14 or 15-foot blow-up tender with a 60 horsepower.
Yeah.
They're usually there just for a couple hours, 3-4 hours to get, to revictualize the vessels, things of that sort. It's rare that you've got someone permitted all year, all season, but it has been creeping up. It has been.
Okay, well, just,
Steve, just for a point of, I've asked this question before, overnight dockage fees at $250 or $4, does that include power?
No.
No.
Power it's a separate line.
It is?
You see electricity fees?
Oh, yeah, got it.
oh, I've been meaning to ask
$15 per
about this
night.
too.
I asked the same question because I was noticing that
Yeah,
most of the time when I go to sleep, and it's included, but not in Camden.
well, it's included and it's not $250, it's like $350. I don't think I've ever paid less than $350 any place for a boat less than 40 feet. So my point is, these fees are still very reasonable for Camden Harbor, or at least the ones I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But anyway, other comments, board?
I thank you for bringing up the electricity, because is there any chance that we're losing, that they could use more than $15 worth of power while they're there?
With 30 amp service, probably, good question, but it's the big demand would be, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, would be AC on the boat. air conditioning on the boat. That would be a big power draw. But 15, I don't know. That's a question I couldn't answer. Steve, maybe you can.
It just seems kind of low to me, but I don't really, I'm not knowledgeable enough to.
Well, I mean, what usually happens is, in my experience, is you're paying $3.50 a night with power, which is $1 per foot over what we're charging here. So $1 per foot on a 40-foot boat would be $40. You're paying for power.
I think one of
30 and 40.
One of the things we took into account is that in those marinas where you pay those, or harbors where you pay those fees, there are more amenities in the marina that we offer.
Absolutely. Showers,
laundry, things like that, chandlery, which we don't have.
No, we don't.
So, yes, we could, I mean, okay.
We have demand, don't we? It's not like we're hurting for.
No, we're not
people that
hurting for.
wanted-
No, it's just that we're talking about dollars, and she's right, but costs I was talking about doing.
And we talked about that,
They
you know,
include showers, laundry, other facilities are available at all those marinas.
But I think we should, and maybe we should suggest the harbor committee keep a log of, like a running market study of what's happening in different harbors.
Yep.
So that we can compare it every year, because they change every year. Bucks change. I mean, a lot of harbors change every year.
And Steve, I doubt this power is metered anywhere, correct?
Say that again, Bob?
I doubt the power, most marinas, it's not metered for what boats are drawing. You don't have.
That's correct. It's a flat rate fee for the night
even-
on what
yeah, but-
kind you want, 30 amp, 50 amp, or 100 amp.
Yeah, but
But we don't have a way of metering or knowing how much each one uses, or what are those things that are on the.
It's about to happen, though. With the advent of electric automobiles, you'll be able to have those meters at a reasonable price. But this, again, comes back to reassessing next year or in 2 years when that is readily available.
That's forthcoming.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, with that, board, any more comments?
No, I was going to move, but can I move or not?
Oh, yeah.
Am I allowed to move?
This is your baby.
We don't have to second it.
I move that we approve the fee schedule for the harbor, I move that we approve the fee schedule for the 2022 harbor fee.
I would like to second Sophie's motion.
My
It's
motion
been
was-
made and seconded. A motion has been made and seconded. Are there any more discussion, board?
Just that it's exciting that the Harbor Committee is back up and rolling.
Yeah.
And it seems to, again, it's really great to see cause and effect and also results. So thank you, Sophie, and thank you, Steve, for getting this all back up and rolling again.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
And Sophie, thanks, Sophie. You're doing great.
No, Sophie doesn't get any thanks.
No, I need a vote.
Oh, right.
You all be quiet for a minute. Ooh, I got that one across. You know that?
Oh.
All those,
Never gonna happen.
all those in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. The last item on our action list is as you many don't know, we just last week changed the schedule of the select board to tonight, the 30th, and December 7th, because a number of reasons, but not least of which was our prior schedule had us meeting on the week of Christmas, which I think is not wise. So while we did that, I went back and checked, and the Harbor Committee, the select board's calendar we actually approved 2 weeks ago actually has the same situation, and this action is to revise the same thing and make our meetings next year on the 22nd to be on November 29th and December 13th.
I'll make a motion that we approve those changes to the schedule for November meetings. That in November it would be the 2nd, 15th, and 29th, and December would be December 13th.
I second.
Motion made and second discussion. All's in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. On to discussion items. Audra, we had set dates for a meeting with Lincolnville, and then time bit us all in the.
Well, and it was also that the Lincolnville Select Board asked for dates in January. So what they've proposed is January 3rd or 18th.
Any time of day?
No. They
That's
have not.
that's very surprising.
Oh, early evening. Yeah, early evening.
That doesn't surprise me.
You know the mic is on.
You said January 4 or
3rd or 18th, early evening.
18, we have a select board,
Do we?
No.
but yeah.
Remember, the calendar's in our calendar's in our packet at the very end.
Yes.
Yeah, hold on a
Yes, you do.
second.
Yeah, we do. That's correct. 18th. Martin Luther King is the 17th.
Great. You're right.
Sophie is correct.
She is.
I know, it's
again.
shocking.
Well, 17th is a holiday. That's probably why they picked that day. And I. So I guess the situation is neither one works.
No,
Well, the 18th doesn't because we have a meeting
Well,
then.
what was it? Oh, you said it was the 3rd, not the 4th, right? Oh,
3rd, yeah.
I,
I feel 3rd is hard because we're just coming back from the holidays
Great.
and.
That's not a
and
great date.
I want to come prepared for this meeting a little bit.
well, again, we're going to, we've, in the last meeting, we talked about having an agenda prior to this meeting
Right.
from both sides, you know,
Right.
what discussion is, so we can control the duration, of course, but Lincolnville's really good at that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Sylvia. I think the 3rd is a little tight to the holidays, and why it has to be a Monday or Tuesday, I don't know. But if it is, it sounds, if they have to be an evening kind of a thing, then I would, a Monday or Tuesday, it seems logical that it would have to be on the 10th or 11th,
Yeah.
or 24th and 25th, one
Yep.
of those 2 days.
I will be out of town on the 10th.
Okay, so so the January 11th possibly, or the 24th, 25th, early evening, Audra. Can we bounce that off of them, please? Sorry about that, but it's, you know, not that there are other days in the week, but it sounds like they prefer the off Mondays, you know, kind of thing, or Tuesdays because of their schedule. I understand that. So let's bounce that off, and let me write that down before I forget. So we're talking about possibly January 11th evening, or 24, 25 evening. Okay. Sounds superstitious. No. I'm trying to get back to my agenda. And that would be, okay. Next item would be, Audra, could you give us an update on 22 Atlantic Ave? This is, of course, the item which we discussed not so long ago about issues that were being challenged on that consent agreement, very similar to the consent agreement we've been discussing earlier for the situation at the landing. But please, would you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so happily, at this stage, it does not look like we're going to have to proceed to court for the enforcement of that agreement. The Hefners have agreed to pay all the costs associated with the engineering, design, and remediation of the site. They did want to make amendments to the consent agreement that they would be allowed to manage invasive species, such as Japanese knotweed in particular, on that property. And so we're looking at writing something into the agreement where they would be able to do that with approval from the town. Allison.
On our property, they want to,
Yeah.
no. That's, I mean, the biggest, this stream is important because of the temperature and the trout habitat one of the reasons that the stream is important is because of that. And Japanese knotweed doesn't present a big risk to that stream. In fact, Japanese knotweed might be one of the only things that's going to quickly grow back up again and shade the stream that was now is just in the piercing sun. There are a lot of things that are worse than Japanese knotweed, and one of those things is removing vegetation from a stream bank.
What's the purpose of why the focus on the Japanese knotweed? Do we know?
They're just very concerned with invasive species.
They don't want weeds growing in their yard. I mean, that's why.
Not their yard.
Well, they're worried, they're going to be worried it's going to migrate.
Invade into their yard.
Right, but we all have that problem when we live next to other people that have things that migrate.
They have bittersweet like my
I mean, the point of this property is that it's this little wild area that provides a buffer for that stream. And I think we need, the whole thing was supposed to come back to us to approve the
It's still,
It still will. It
Yes.
still will.
I mean, the shade is the
No, not-
biggest
not the-
part. They
not
took
the-
down these really big trees, the limbs on these really big trees that you're never going to be able to grow those trees back again. But finding a way to make that section of the stream shaded again is a really big priority.
The consent agreement will come back for it's been changed. It will be changed. That's going to be
The
a future.
restoration plan was supposed
The
to.
restoration plan, I went back and checked, that was not required to come back to select board.
It absolutely was. It said in the consent agreement, it said that subject to the approval of the select board, that the restoration
that?
plan. Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. If it does, it does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
I would-
please
yeah.
do. I didn't remember that, Allison, so I went back and I couldn't find that, so that's why I made the comment. If it is required in there, then it is required to come back, but we already have that plan. I think you sent it to us already, so, okay. But I guess the issue on just, we should, what other board comments about that?
So, I mean, I'm not knowledgeable at all about Japanese knotweed or any of the things, but I understand the necessity to provide shade, but maybe there would be another plan that would be amenable both to us and them. Could we try to find something that works for everyone?
For ground cover, you mean?
Yeah.
It's very atypical for to be allowed to manage the weeds on your neighbor's property. And so as much as I might not like certain things that my neighbors are planting, or you see some neighbors complain about the trees that their neighbors have because the leaves blow over. And so I think Japanese knotweed is one of those things that is very, very difficult to get rid of. It's all over the stream bank. It might be a good site walk for the select board. I would gladly, there's no way they're going to get rid of all the Japanese knotweed. And so I think if they wanted to, it would be, maybe there are things that could be really mutually beneficial. Like if they wanted to hire somebody who is really certified in trout habitat, whatever, that really has expertise in stream bank restoration, and a lot of it is putting wood into they removed dead trees too, which is a really important part of stream health, is like the dead trees that fall into the stream and stay there. So if I'd love to talk to them if they were into that kind of thing. Like maybe we can even make it better than it was before. Maybe they want to pay for a fish-friendly culvert there, and that would wipe out the Japanese knotweed because it'd be intertidal zone again. But I know this is this is kind of adding a level of complexity. Is there something in this is just a discussion item based on?
Well, because we don't have
Nothing to review.
We don't have anything to review at this point. That's going to be forthcoming on December 7th.
Well, I mean, I guess, this was sort of the purpose of the update, knowing if that's unacceptable to the board, I need to go back to them and tell them that so we can figure this out.
It's just going to be an ongoing thing. If they want to be able to, in the long term, manage Japanese knotweed on our property, this is going to be just like this constant thing that's coming to us like, oh, can we go in there and get the knotweed? It'll be never ending. It's a bad precedent to set, I think.
I don't feel capable of talking to the knotweed and not. Remember, this started out with, as we understood it, a pushback on the consent agreement that was signed, that they would not pay for the restoration plan, period. That's what prompted the action to say we need to file a motion with the courts for that situation. And now when we're talking about a revised agreement that has some single limitation about the ground cover thing. So I think the board just needs to make a decision as to whether or not we want that renegotiated or not. And where for me, it feels like it's a rat hole. I don't know where it's going to go.
They don't like the restoration plan, and frankly, neither do I. So maybe if what they're opposing is the restoration plan,
Let me ask, the first question I want to ask, is there knotweed there now? Has there been knotweed there? Okay,
yeah, it's all over the place. It's
and
been
if it
there.
hasn't been a concern for us, it's our property.
Right, it's not causing, it was there when they bought the property, it was there, it's been there. They went and knocked it all down because
invasive species are a problem, but I don't know that we should hire or allow independent people to manage it.
I don't know how it's worded. Are they managing on their property, or are they managing on our property?
They want to do both.
We have this issue with other people that are like annoyed that their neighbors aren't properly dealing with the knotweed. And it's like, or that the town we should be pulling it out of the ditches instead of weed whacking it. People have a lot of opinions about how we should manage it. It's a slippery slope. And planting trees, places where there are a lot of trees, the knotweed is actually naturally dealt with a little.
I like the idea that, see if there's an alternative.
I mean, alternative plant?
Yeah. That would
I mean,
prevent
we could
it
do
from
some
growing.
really fancy stuff over there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a possible solution if they're willing to accept something that will take over and not allow them.
I would say.
Restored
kind of
intertidal
at
zone.
This point, yeah,
I'll just like
with
no.
this restoration plan, I'm kind of at a loss of what to do. I really am.
I have to
I don't
agree
know
with you.
what to do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Yeah. I just feel like this can be dragged out and go on for a very long time.
Well, that's why I wanted to clarify what the restoration plan is, our approval or not, because it has to come back here if it does.
Yeah.
I tried to find the agreement. I couldn't find it quickly, but I had to go back to the last meeting whenever we had the discussion on the, I didn't recall it required that, but still in a way, I don't know how long this negotiation can go on for, because I still want to avoid having to go to court on something. And
Let them propose a fish-friendly,
They
could propose a second restoration
If this has
plan.
to go to court, it's not going to be seen for years.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I agree. It'll be way down the bottom of the list.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
What if we were just to tell them if they wanted to propose an alternative restoration plan?
On the ground cover?
That protects
Yeah,
the
like
fish
we could,
habitat.
that is superior.
Well, we have a restoration plan that somebody drew. So
I know, but
now you're requesting the whole new restoration plan based on what they want?
if there's nothing we didn't, there are different approaches to restoration depending on the purpose, and there's nothing special about the restoration plan that we have come up with.
Who did the restoration plan?
Jeff Senders.
Okay.
But we didn't really give him a lot of direction. I'm not saying that he did a bad job. I mean,
In my head, who was involved in this, because we can have 15 people and it's like buying
There's been a lot of
you
people
can have
involved in
buying a
this.
shirt, you can buy different colors and blah, blah, blah. And this can turn into a circular thing, we want to resolve it. So Jeff.
I mean, I feel like it is already, because it kind of started out with them saying, we'll do the restoration plan. And we said, no, we're going to pick the person. And now for us to say, yeah.
So
I mean,
it is what it is. So
just to know them. It's
What?
just to know them. They can't manage
you can
to.
pull the weed on our property.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
Nope, that's all
That's
I
fair.
kind of need.
Negotiate that at some later time. If they want to bring us some knotweed mitigation extravaganza, we could consider that at some other point if they wanted to fund
Is there a better alternative?
subsequent work.
That's why I asked about the ground cover thing, not when you said restoration plan, I'm thinking of new trees and new bushes, whatever's in that drawing.
That's
And
in that drawing.
That's in that drawing,
Yeah.
but not a new restoration plan, but a recommendation on the knotweed issue, the ground cover issue, and keep it focused on that piece only.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they've proposed and want included in the consent agreement.
see.
It has to be
Yeah.
separate.
Well, I think we should have just, if the board, I hear the board saying, let's go back and ask if they want to come back with a different recommendation to control the knotweed without taking whatever they want to do on our
So
property.
what I can say to them is that you're open to some sort of agreement with them to manage the Japanese knotweed, but you do not want it written into the consent agreement.
But you say manage,
Sufficient?
A separate agreement?
Yes.
no, but you're not looking to have them manage it on town property.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's a no, except we want to finish this. We want them to plant some trees again, like we've said in our plan, more or less.
Well, what I
And
heard-
later on, we can talk about knotweed if it becomes a
Well,
problem.
exactly. What Audra said was she just said that we won't address the knotweed in the consent agreement, but we will agree to work with them to come up with an alternative plan to that issue.
That, I think it's pretty unlikely, actually, that we will come to an agreement on the knotweed issue. I'm open to the idea that we would be just amazed by some plan that they have to do, but we could talk about that later, but I don't think we should leave them with any ideas that it's highly likely that they're going to be allowed to pull the weeds on our property on a regular basis.
Well, but I don't know what's even worded. Is it worded that they want to pull the weeds in our property? They just want to control the knotweed?
How else would you do it? What do they want? They can't use Roundup.
No, they can't. Hopefully not. But
Well, they could. That's the problem. That's what you're trying to avoid.
No,
Yeah.
they're not allowed to do anything there.
on the shoreline zone, they can't. But
Yeah, just-
That didn't stop them from cutting down trees.
no, that's true. That's true. But I don't know how it's worded or what it says. But we're really just saying the knotweed issue has to be a separate discussion, apart from the consent agreement.
Yeah.
And they can open up that discussion with whomever in the town, or it's probably with you and Bill Kelly and whomever else.
Okay.
Right? All right.
Next.
I lost track of where I was.
Halloween storm report.
Oh, yeah, the gold storm report, Audra, that I think we finally gotten.
Well, no.
City's really lacking.
It's all a lot more, if we do the full FEMA reimbursement process, it's pages and pages of documents, and I think
Yeah.
we're still waiting to see if that's going to be, that we're even eligible for it before it's all
I
pulled
see.
together. But I can tell you, if you want, sort of the list of what was done and where it was done.
Yep.
I can give you that. We've pulled together, photos of damage, that kind of thing. But in terms of having like a sort of consolidated report that has everything in it, we don't have that at this stage for all the departments. We have it for Public Works because they did the majority of the work, even for sites like the Snow Bowl. But for all of the other departments besides Public Works, we still are pulling that together.
Okay.
Are they finished with everything?
Yes. Yeah.
You mean with all the work?
With repairs.
Yeah.
Repairs.
How could, at Barrett's Cove?
Well, I mean, there are going to be big things that we need to kind of talk about.
I mean, Barrett's Cove just is like a,
Now, are we expecting a full report from FEMA?
Well, that's what we'd have to prepare for FEMA if we find out we're eligible for reimbursement.
I see. So
Yeah.
our schedule is to continue to prepare that in December? And you
Yes.
get it
Yeah,
out.
we're
Okay.
still
Okay.
pulling that all together and just trying to figure out if, sorry, I was getting text from department heads while I'm talking.
we're not done yet.
Exactly. No, it's about the knotweed stuff.
Everybody knows
Very-
it's not weed except for me.
It's a common issue
Yeah.
around here.
Anyway, so that we'll have that sometime in December probably.
Yeah.
But probably-
It's a lot of work to pull this together for no reason. So the only reason we would pull it together to that level of detail is if we're going to get reimbursement from FEMA.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
When do we know, how do we know that?
I think we're kind of just waiting for, MEMA, the state agency, to tell us whether or not it looks like we're going to be eligible for
Okay.
reimbursement.
Okay.
And that's all determined by sort of the level of damage, the geographic spread of the damage, and whether or not that
Yep.
kind of rises above the threshold of
Okay.
federal disaster
I see.
declaration
I
and
see.
aid.
Will be interesting. Who's pricing this out? Us?
Well, we know it's so fine grained. You have to explain the materials you used, the equipment you used, who was on the equipment, what their hourly rate is, how long they did it. I mean, it's everything.
I guess my question is does this feel like it's going to be a number of substance that's going to get the attention of a FEMA level at the federal government?
For them, it's the cumulative. So
Oh.
it's not just Camden. They'll look at Camden, Rockland,
I see.
Lincolnville, all of the, places in Maine that were impacted by this
Are
storm.
those towns doing the same thing in
Yes.
parallel? That's- yeah.
Well,
Probably not to this.
I mean, Yeah, there are a lot of towns that are not doing the level of, so as part of the flood resiliency training that we were doing, we talked a lot about this, and like how towns go about quantifying the damage that happens from all of these events. And the problem is that a lot of the time they come up and it's just like nobody was expecting that rain event to cause a bunch of damage. And so people just go about their normal work of trying to fix things and not putting every single hour down on a spreadsheet with GPS coordinates. And the reporting requirements for this are kind of crazy. And most towns are trying to scramble after the fact to be like, oh, you know, during that, while the road was washing out, were we keeping track of how many people were there or which excavator was used? Or so I've heard from just like other municipal friends on social media and stuff like, oh, our town didn't do this. We're now trying to scramble after the fact to figure out if there are things. So it's not,
Are some towns not going? That's my question to Audra.
Some of them just, it's not worth it because they decide.
They're too small, the amount of time.
The amount of work and effort. So I just question the magnitude of the cumulative towns as a magnitude is big enough to get FEMA's attention.
No, there's.
I mean, that's the job of MEMA. Maine Emergency Management.
So this happens kind of a lot. So a lot of the time they'll be like, oh, this might be a FEMA storm. So everybody start keeping track of things. And it's something that is talked about.
In 2017 with that November windstorm that we had, and that rose to the level of.
It did.
So,
well, but that was huge power outages, huge amount of tree work, much bigger, in my opinion, than we had in the storm in dollar-wise.
There's so many culverts washed out and catch basins damaged and roads. It's like there's a lot.
Well, a lot of that is MDOT, not Camden.
Doesn't matter. That all gets counted. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to see what happens.
Yes, but I mean, I can give you everything that I have, but I guess my point being at this point, it's not a consolidated, easy to read, quick
I think we should wait until you have everything put together.
Yeah, it's very widespread.
If we do submit something to FEMA, then it would be nice to see a copy of that final thing, but we shouldn't be creating extra work for them by saying, we want to see this report before it's.
And that's the thing, like before we sort of like go to the trouble to do all of that, I kind of want to make sure that it's in service of something.
I agree.
And you can't go to any other town right now and say, can I see your potential FEMA submission for the storm of, it's not going to happen.
Can I see a spreadsheet? Anyway, okay, thanks, Audra.
Absolutely.
Well, since you're on the podium, why don't you continue with town manager report?
Yeah, well, I'll go through it all. So we already talked about the storm, so I don't need to go into that again.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of back and forth, but after finally kind of coming up with a plan that seemed to suit everyone, I approved a sidewalk encumbrance permit that is going to go from, I think they say they're going to start tomorrow. I don't think that they're going to be ready to start tomorrow because they need other approvals from the code office. But that's when they wanted, the permit to go into effect from, and ending at the end of February of 2022 for major emergency repairs that need to take place on 4 Main Street. So that's the building that's at the corner of Mechanic and Main, where the new, there's a bump out for the new sidewalk, and the tree was recently planted there. Yes. So there's a link to what the plan is going to look like, because originally there was a request to remove that tree, and after lots of back and forth with them, it was determined that there are alternatives to that. So there's going to need to be some pedestrian detouring for people who want to turn onto that section of Mechanic Street. So the sidewalk that runs along the back of Planet and where, Liberty Graphics is now.
Yep.
So there's going to be some level of pedestrian detour to sort of cross people to the other sidewalk, and then they can, go back if they need to get to the shops that are back there. But other than that, the sidewalk will allow for pedestrian access and the tree will be protected. The police department also approved a road closure application for Washington Street, and this is the section, starting it right here down to Mechanic Street, for Keeley Crane Service for work that needs to be done on the roof of the Brace building. So this work is going to take place on December 2nd, and it's going to start at 8:45 in the morning, and it should be completed by 1 p.m. So the street will be open after that.
Which one is the Brace building?
Across the street.
Yep.
Across the street, okay, thanks.
So we're currently working with the Maine Coastal Program to close out the Coastal Communities Grant that the town received for the design and the engineering for the removal or the partial removal of the Montgomery Dam and the redevelopment of the area that's where the seawall is. So the funding for this program comes from NOAA, and there's only a certain amount of time that funding is available, and it needs to be spent by the end of the calendar year. It all goes back to the federal government. So we're really not at a point where we have a design concept that's ready to progress to final engineering. So what we're going to do is close out the grant without doing that final engineering step. And this will give us the opportunity to sort of refocus on the broader river restoration effort, and also kind of start at the beginning with some of the discussions around more of the, conceptual design, and not have the pressure to progress anything to final engineering design.
Okay.
Audra, can you define close out?
So that means we're pretty much stopping the project. We won't draw down the full grant amount. We've drawn down, I think, quite a bit of it at this stage. I don't know the exact amount, but because we're not delivering the final work product, which is the engineered design, and we're kind of just stopping the project, we're going to close everything out, do our last payment requisition, and then that'll be the end of the project, as far as Maine Coastal Program is concerned. So representatives from the town, which included myself, Beth Ward, Bob was at the first meeting, met with members of the Ragged Mountain Foundation to discuss the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that we were awarded for over $400,000, as well as talk about the opportunity through the Economic Development Administration to apply for the Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Grant to assist in the completion of the redevelopment and the event center. We won't call it the lodge, because for the purpose of this grant, it's an event center. And also the mountain biking facilities that were discussed as part of the redevelopment plan. After that meeting, there was a follow-up meeting where Beth and I attended a meeting of the full foundation. And a lot of, positive, sort of sentiments from the foundation. They really want to work with the town to move this forward. They think it's a great opportunity. They're really happy to try and get an application together with us that we can submit and help us with the match to the grant.
And that application, I understand, is like in the first quarter next year?
Yes, so it would be best if we could submit the application in February, but March would still be a really good, it would put us in the door early and make us competitive.
The trail would be like, a lot of people walk on a trail, so it's walk and biking.
So the Round the Mountain Trail is a multi-use trail.
Right, that's the word I was using.
Yeah, and that I think will be largely funded through fundraising that they've done, as well as the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So this particular opportunity would look specifically at some of the mountain biking facilities that were proposed.
Perfect.
And I think that, one of the things that they did want us to look at was gathering revised information on the construction costs associated with the lodge design, the lodge, just to figure out if that was going to be feasible to move that forward. Sorry, the event center. Thank you, Mark.
Mark.
Yes. Gotta drill that in.
Great, Audra.
So anyway, they're going to help us out with that, because they have, their building committee did a lot of work on it, and they're pretty confident that they can get revised cost updates. So the final application, all of that needs to come back to the select board for approval for us to formally submit the grant and then accept the funds should we be successful.
Perfect.
Let me see what next.
Parking.
So Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, they also have an opportunity to apply. I think there's going to be a lot of different funding opportunities given, recent legislation that's passed in Congress. But there are some ideas out there for how Camden specifically could be, one of the anchor customers for the corporation.
The town of Camden.
The town of Camden. And this could be similar for the city of Rockland. So Rockland approved funding back in 2016, maybe 2017, to wire get fiber to all of their municipal buildings.
Right.
And that could be something similar that Camden contemplates. Axiom Technology, who's doing the feasibility study for Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, is going to look at, what the likely cost of that is. And that'll give us something for the select board to look at and see if that would be a feasible project for the town. And the idea would be that, as an anchor customer, the town would invest in that and then hand that infrastructure over to Midcoast Internet Development Corporation as part of that network. So that's just something to consider and something that's currently being worked on. We have the fourth meeting of the Parking Management Strategy Steering Group that's going to be held in mid-December. So this will be their final meeting where they discuss, report recommendations and what the final sort of strategy proposal is that's going to be brought in front of the community. So at this stage, we're still trying to finalize the date. That's all going to be posted and live streamed. But one thing that I need the board to help me out with is settling on a date for an early January public meeting. And this will be the final public meeting where everybody has an opportunity to give feedback on the recommendations of the study.
Do we have a chicken and egg here about getting something ready for that meeting, or is everything all prepared for it?
The recommendations
It'll be
will
ready.
It'll be ready.
So are you just looking for a workshop kind of a meeting, or?
It needs to be sort of a public meeting, so I'm asking the select board just because I know you guys have a better sense of, how we get word out and.
Are you looking for a date, or are you looking for?
A date, time, all of that.
Probably she's trying to
Help me get the word
the
out.
idea so that when people say, well, that was the worst time you ever could have chosen to have a meeting, and obviously you were trying to exclude the public by choosing that time, and she's saying, what time would be good to have a meeting about
So
this?
I'm not unilaterally the one.
Yeah, like how can we get people to participate, and what's going to work for everyone?
Because the last one, we just didn't have very good.
That was the lead time, I think, was the issue.
That was during the day, too.
Yeah, but it was, specifically, I think the lead time
Okay.
was.
So are you looking for a specific date and time in January?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Keep it simple. Let's see, what the hell's going on here?
So I would suggest the second half of January, first of all. Not first.
Well, we have meetings the 4th and the 18th, right? We already established
Just gave
that.
some of those dates to Lincolnville.
Yeah, we did. We gave the 11th, 11th and 24th, 25. Are we proposing an evening meeting or a day meeting?
Well, that's what
As
I'm,
part of the
part of what I'm asking of you.
philosophical approach that she's looking for guidance on.
Got that part, but,
Sorry.
well,
This is where Mark says we should do it in the
Evenings
evening, and we say, maybe we should do it in the daytime.
Wednesday and Thursday evening is a real problem for me. But other evenings, I can partake if it has to be evening. If you think it's more effective to have it in the evening?
She's asking us.
I'm asking all of you.
I think it's more effective. I do think that more people can join, if we have a meeting around 5 or 6.
Right.
Than a 10 a.m. meeting, for instance,
Right.
or.
As long as it's, we'll do the hybrid thing again, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
we
that-
did one in the daytime, so why don't we try one in the evening?
We can definitely do that, but the whole thing is about getting the word out. That's usually what our problem is.
Yep.
Because it might be too soon last time, you may be right. Or maybe,
If you can't do Wednesday or Thursday, that doesn't really, it only
at
leaves
least
us
Monday and
Friday.
Tuesday. At least Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. But
Maybe we should try a
17th
weekend.
is Martin Luther King, 18th is select board meeting, 24th, 25th, we just gave us options.
We can
to
try,
Lincolnville?
we can try January 18th,
No, we have a select board meeting.
Select board.
shoot, 25th.
Didn't we just offer that to Lincolnville?
Yeah, well, don't offer the 25th to Lincolnville, offer the 24th to Lincolnville.
Yeah,
And the 25th would be.
25th would be the parking.
5 o'clock or 5:30, whatever you want.
Okay.
On the 25th. All right, Audra? Mm-hmm. Okay, go.
All right, thank you.
Did we do the middle school? No, no.
Is there a middle school?
Yeah, there is a middle school.
There is.
That's part of the benefit of it.
People like meeting there better than here.
They do. I do.
At the middle school?
Gotten a chance to meet there
So
yet.
let's do that.
So we're going to say approximately.
5:30 on the 25th.
5:30 on the 25th. Would
At the
you
middle
choose
school?
the venue?
We have to ask them if it's
I
okay,
don't
but
care
we've
what the
had
venue
some
is.
other good things there, and people
I-
usually, more people show up because then
I
at
can
least
fi-
people at the middle school find out a little bit because they have
I
to.
can certainly find that venue. Let us know where to show up. Okay, Audra,
Great, okay, so,
you're on to.
Only if that doesn't add to the complication like too much. I didn't mean to make
I have a
anybody's
question for
life
this,
like.
actually.
Okay.
Work continues. You're talking about the ordinance changes next.
yes. No?
but,
Okay.
I'll-
So, there are going to be three new ordinance amendments that are brought before you, so just
Yep.
giving you the heads up.
Yep.
So one is the road opening pole placement in the right-of-way ordinance and permit process. So that's a brand-new ordinance that we're developing now. So again, to the discussion about fees, we should kind of build that in from the very beginning. Also updating the shade tree ordinance
Right.
because it hasn't been looked at in quite a long time. There have been some really good discussions about how do we make the shade tree program more successful and more impactful. And I think I'm going to kind of cut to the chase with some of it. I think that, when it comes to the right-of-way and wanting to place shade trees in the right-of-way, we need to think about it a little bit more like any other piece of infrastructure. It's the town's right-of-way. If we want trees in there, we're going to put them in there. And I think we can still carry out our program as it is when it comes to areas where we want shade trees and it maybe butts up against the right-of-way, but
Right.
the right-of-way isn't suitable for that purpose. I think maybe that's more of the approach that we need to take the traditional approach in those circumstances, because that's when we need the cooperation from property owners. But I think if it's, we really want to get serious about planting more trees, we need to be more firm about, if we want to put them in the right-of-way,
Right.
we need to be able to move forward and do that. And I think our shade tree ordinance and updating it to sort of state that and allow that is going to be the most effective way that we can do that. There are other changes we need to make, but I think that that's going to be one of the important ones.
So this would be the 48th.
You might want to tell people
priority
what the
item?
traditional approach is.
Oh, sorry, that's a good point. Not necessarily the 14th, because some of them need a little bit more, like one of them needs to go to the planning board for a
Oh.
hearing, and that's the next one I'll talk about. But, the traditional approach is, sort of advertising that we have a shade tree program, encouraging,
Yep.
residents who want a shade tree to come to the town. We work with the garden club. The garden club pays a portion. We pay a portion. The tree gets planted.
Yeah, the property owner has to pay a portion. It doesn't,
Pays $50.
So this
200.
This becomes the 48th priority item on the list then.
I mean,
what?
Well,
What'd you say?
It becomes the 48th priority item on our priority.
we were
list.
kind of already had this one.
Well, I just want to be clear. It's fine, but that's when we're adding probably 2 or 3 more priorities to our priority list, correct?
No.
Not-
A lot of these are things that we'd already been working on.
These are just kind of little things that would make it easier to do.
You can say it's little things that turn to big things.
Well, then maybe you can say that.
No, it's fine. I think it needs to be done, but I just want to.
Well, a lot of them are already things that we've
The
been
Conservation
working on.
Commission too is going to
So,
stuff, but.
Okay,
yeah, and another thing is the erosion and sedimentation and erosion control amendments to the zoning ordinance.
right.
So all of those things are going to come before the select
Oh,
board.
geez.
Or potential ballot in June.
Yes. Yep, and the only one that needs to go before the planning board is the erosion and
Right,
sedimentation.
right.
So,
What's going on with that? What's happening with that right now? What's going to be, who's reviewing it? What's going to be proposed?
So
Is it in
it's-
our packet somewhere?
pretty similar to what you saw last year.
I don't remember what you're talking about.
But it exists.
What?
It's not in our packet, but it does exist.
Yeah.
We'll have to take a look at
It's something that we saw last year that we,
Yes, we didn't do anything.
That was tabled?
It was tabled.
So let's wait until we have the new version, right?
but I think, was it tabled because it wasn't,
The
I
agricultural,
Yeah,
really wasn't good enough. It was, now I remember.
yeah.
When does it come before the planning board?
I don't know.
I
Let's,
suspect the first of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, by now, yeah.
So, okay, that's
Okay.
just sort of the update on those.
Okay.
So another thing that we need to prepare for the ballot in June is transitioning away from the traditional open town meeting to secret ballot voting on the budget. So even though this is something that is not prohibited by the charter as it currently stands, the select board can choose to have secret ballot voting on the budget, as well as any other item at this stage, given the current work that, was approved by voters on the charter. This would sort of institutionalize that method of voting on the budget and put in place, exactly what's put on the ballot, how it's put on the ballot, any other additional information that the select board may want to send out, any other processes around that. This is something that we need to look at anyway because of the fact that state legislation with the ADA ballots means that we need to have everything ready earlier. So, yeah, it's not something that you're prevented from doing now. I just want to be very clear about that.
which is mind-boggling to me. Are we sure
Absolutely. I've looked through.
You sure about what?
that currently we have the ability, even before all of the coronavirus executive orders, that the ability for the select board to have put the budget out to voters at the polls,
Right.
secret ballot on the thing, that's existed.
According to Bill, yes, and I saw the statute you're referring to, and as I read it,
It's not just the statute, it's
statute.
also our charter.
well, I meant the statute that says what you can change in the charter and how.
No, but like our charter as it stands.
Yeah, there's
We've
nothing,
been
nothing.
handcuffing ourselves with our imagination, or it's just been so.
It's more custom. It's more custom than what's spelled out in our charter.
Correct,
What our charter says is that there is an annual open town meeting.
correct.
And so it's been
Within the
only logical, well, the budget's the one that goes on that, and then anything else the select board adds, but it doesn't actually say that in the charter anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
The only thing, strangely enough, the
Budget.
only thing that was spelled out as being something that had to happen during open town meeting was the election of the budget nominating committee. And
Correct. That's the only thing that's
that's
in there.
pretty much it. And that's gone now.
So I think we should address it while the iron's hot, but that'll have to be to us in time for the March approval.
Correct.
The now March, used to be April, of the warrants for June.
Yeah. So I'm going to come back with, and Deb Dodge has
Charter
been very
change, or-
helpful with this.
Yes, that's right.
But that means that the budget committee meetings are not in March.
The
need
budget
to be
committee
moved
meetings
up.
were usually in April.
No, they're in
End-
March.
End of March,
March.
and the first, yeah, they have to all move back.
They have to move back to February, move up, right?
The
So we
whole
need to-
process moves back by about
Yeah.
a month.
Did you say that? Or is
Well, that's because of the ADA ballots.
Printing requirement.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Are you saying that there's a charter change that's going to come to us that's going to codify all of this? How much of the budget process do we want in our charter, and how much of it do we not want in
Well,
our charter?
that's the main
challenge.
question.
That's the challenge. That's what they're wrestling with, trying to come up with options and ideas, as I understand it, as potential consideration for changes that could, because there's a number of ways it's done by different towns,
Absolutely.
very
And
different ways.
Yeah, so we might want to learn slowly a little bit and not.
We will. I think we will. I mean, well, I think we get out how other towns handle it and have that information. That's available, I believe.
Yes, and I was going to say Deb Dodge has been really
Yeah,
helpful
she-
in researching this.
Yes, she
and
has. She's been
she
very
prepared
helpful.
something that she gave to Bob and I.
Right.
And I think that,
This is starting.
yeah, as
She
a-
did, because she looked at all those
This is
different
start- oh,
towns
yeah,
that do this and how they
did,
can,
and
she had
did.
a lot of good
And
stuff.
there's
that-
some- she points out the fundamental decision, as I recall, the fundamental decisions that we may need to consider as terms of the charter and different options you might have.
and it's, I mean, and because it's the charter, it's all pretty high level.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, those are pretty important.
Oh, yeah.
Those sort of like fundamental high-level decisions, what trickles down from that is sort of procedurally how we handle
Yep,
this moving
yep,
forward.
yep.
So, anyway, I will come back to you with that as soon as possible, so we can get that settled in time for being included on the ballot. So I think that's, the town, all the
yes.
towns I'll talk about that next. The town's departments completed EMA training exercise today that we have to do yearly. It's mandated by MEMA for the town's 3 high-hazard dams. And everybody said that was excellent. Matt Heath ran the training, and he just does a phenomenal job with that.
Great.
So thank you, Matt. Also, the OSHA rules requiring workplaces with over 100
Yeah.
employees to have a vaccination mandate or a weekly testing regime have been put on hold due to a stay that was issued by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah, I
And
heard
we've been
that.
advised by both Bill Kelly and MMA Legal has put out information on this, advising towns with over 100 employees, such as Camden, to hold off in implementing any mandate when it
We have
comes
more than
to.
100 employees?
Yes, we're considered it as having more than 100 employees because of the Snow Bowl. So even if they're seasonal or part-time, they still count towards our total.
I see.
Yep.
Cool.
So that's my stuff.
Thank you very much, Audra. That was very informative.
I try to be.
So with that, we'll revert to our select boardy reports, starting with Ms. Sophie.
Can we ask questions about her or not? Is that?
Well, we just asked her questions. What more questions do we want to ask? Up to you. Go ahead.
Just one.
Go ahead. Go. Enjoy.
The dam training, or whatever you called it.
Matt Heath's training.
Matt Heath's dam training, high hazard, required.
She just wanted to say that, that's all.
How can we get involved? I think knowing what would happen in the event of a dam breach is something that is not at all intuitive, and going through that process of, okay, if a big wave comes down from the lake and, you know, which roads would have to be closed off, all of that, it seems like it would be useful for select board members, some, or even, you know, more of the, I don't know, a newspaper, or just to become more knowledgeable about what we would do in the event of a disaster, that if the audience maybe could be a little bit broader for that. Is there any reason to?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just personally very jealous that I didn't get to, it sounds like interesting. And
They wanted to use you as a dummy to throw over the dam, so be careful.
I volunteered for everything, and they haven't picked me yet. But,
I'm sure we could open it up.
Oh,
to
yeah,
whoever
yeah,
wants to attend. I
absolutely.
don't think any problem with doing that. I think it's fine, and everybody wants to show up and enjoy and get the information, fine.
because there's a lot of stuff too with the flood mapping and the flood resiliency stuff.
They do it in the basement of the Congregational Church, where if there was a real emergency, that's where we'd have to do it.
Well,
They do it?
I suspect, Sophie and Matt, you do understand that we do have an emergency. You've seen that plan.
Yes.
We took the training.
We were there.
There you go.
Virtually,
Yeah, I think
and I have the PowerPoints also.
Right, there's no reason why they couldn't be.
So you know how important the select board is in all of this.
No, I think important, any one of us
Or
who's the
could-
first on scene.
Or could be, right. I always try to be first on the scene, so.
All right, thank you. Select board reports with Ms. Sophie.
So thank you, Bob. So two things. The first, very brief. The first one, don't worry, very brief. I can see your face.
Bob said enough.
Don't worry about it.
So just to come back on the Harbor Committee, it was really nice meeting with the Harbor Committee. It was a really good conversations, and I was very welcome, and they appreciate the dialogue. So I wanted to thank them and shout out to them that we had a really productive session with lots of good conversation, and I look forward to working with them. Number two, I just want to give a shout out to the town businesses because I walked through town regularly, especially in the morning, and there's lots of efforts to make our town look very festive for the season. And I just want to thank everyone who's putting lights and all kinds of stuff that makes it very joyful for the season because I think we all need a little, oomph, as we say in French. Exactly. So thank you and keep putting, we need more lights.
I've even seen one town business facility that's unoccupied at the moment, decorated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that's it.
Well, I'll speak to what both Sophie and Allison had to say. First off, isn't Friday the Christmas parade?
Yes.
So speaking about people should remember that Friday is the Christmas parade downtown, and after that, almost all the town businesses stay open late, so you can do some support local businesses by doing some holiday shopping, which is a great thing. My family goes every year. It's always a great time. It's always a great time to wander through the stores and see what they've got for the holidays, what they have up for the holidays, and it's their sales involved as well. So you get discounts if you show up on Friday. So a great thing to do. Number two, of course, I'll drive Allison crazy. I was at the dam management emergency action meeting this morning. Well, that's what I was going to talk about
There's
tonight.
no transparency around here.
And she already knows we talked about it earlier. I wanted to expand upon it. Because I have experience in those kinds of things. And for people in the town, they should know that some of the questions Allison had, there are plans and maps and timing. So if we have a dam failure at East or West dams, they have the timing and what time water gets where, how much it will flood, which streets need to be closed off, who is going to handle street closures, who's going to manage the evacuation process. Almost all of the town department managers were there, and they all have different roles and will step in to help. It's a really good plan, and people are very well prepared for emergencies like that. And one thing I'll make clear is that it has to do with the dam failures of the 3 dams that are closer to the lake. It has nothing to do with what we've been talking about with Montgomery Dam or anything like that, to make it clear. But it's a really good plan, really good thought out. Matt Heath does a terrific job laying it all out with the maps, and everybody knows what their job is in those situations. And there are breakdowns using the instant command system or the emergency management system here about, press notification and, bringing in resources, financial resources. Right. It's all part of the plan, and it's well thought out. And so hopefully it provides a very safe environment if we have a very unfortunate incident.
Okay.
That's my report.
Thank you, Marco. Switching to Allison.
Okay, here we go. Really quickly. Maybe Matt can go first while I'm just getting this.
Matt?
How quickly are you going to be?
Well, I know Bob's in a hurry and just.
Not in a hurry, just keep it rolling.
No, well, why don't you just let Matt go and I'll get this. I want to show a picture, and so I'll have it ready.
No pictures, just me and a little razor stubble. That's all we have, but no pictures. I'll just follow up. Oh, here comes the picture, though. Are you sure, Allison?
No, it's going to be the backdrop, though. Go for it.
I'll just follow up on some of the MIDC material, specifically that the revised Axiom studies are being edited and reviewed right now and should be released publicly in the coming weeks. So that will start to, again, give information to the public about the proposed feasibility of a municipal regional utility. Following up on that, we've been meeting with a group called Narrative, which is a local advertising and marketing company, to try and start to get the word out and to find marketing and branding and public relations, as we found that very important what people and how you're perceived out there in the marketplace. So we'll be working with a group to help with us, again called Narrative, local group. And also want to let everybody know in terms of the formation, again, just building off of what Audra was saying, December 13th at 2 p.m. Will be the first official board meeting of the Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, where both Rockland and Thomaston will be joining as per for Thomaston interlocal agreement and as per Rockland by vote of the Rockland City Council to join the regional utility. Benjamin Dorr will be the representative who will be voted in, joining us from Rockland, and Greg Hamlin will be joining us from Thomaston as the representative. That segues into Camden, where at that point we will be needing to elect or select a new representative from Camden to the Board of Directors, and we'll also be looking for a new representative to the Midcoast Internet Coalition, someone with some tech savvy at that time as well. And then just in closing, I'm just going to remind Mark, we're in here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Part of what we're trying to do as we close out the year, this first year of the Development Corporation and of the Coalition, is to make sure that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's in terms of communication. And part of that is making sure that each of the towns reaches out to their representatives in the state, their representatives. And in this case, we're going to meet with Dave Marmont, our state senator, tomorrow morning as part of that process. And I think that does it. Are you ready? Did that work, Allison?
Yeah.
Did I kind of give you enough time?
Yeah.
There's a picture of it.
I see. I saw it coming up. So thank you all.
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Allison. What?
I have one extra thing quickly. When she's
Go ahead.
done.
You want to say something quickly?
I just want to say one extra thing. I understand there is a young lady named Gail who is 83 years old and who's been watching the board meetings, and I just wanted to thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mark. All right, Allison. Allison.
That's nice, because I was feeling like, wow, Matt was really succinct and went through all these things really in a bulleted way, and I'm just going to be showing pictures of trees. And
I'm trying to lead by example. I know.
Well,
no, it's just, I know.
no, it's a good way to do things.
I'm trying.
I try to lead with pictures of the places I like in Camden. So this is just a little bit of context for everybody. This is Daly Brook. This is the area that we were talking about earlier. And these are some of the trees that were cut. So it's really
looking toward the ocean, correct?
Looking toward the ocean, yeah. This is Atlantic Ave. And it's all of this stuff that you see here is all Japanese knotweed.
That big?
It's like a bamboo kind of thing. And yeah, it can be pretty invasive, but it's actually not as invasive in places where it's really well shaded.
I see.
Like with big trees. And so the more you take away the big trees, and so here kind of shows
Adjacent land.
Yeah, and a lot of these trees were limbed up, which I think, provides a nice view of the stream. But it just allowed so much more sun to get through. And, so the knotweed does kind of help in a way. And it's just all over the place there. So that kind of shows. But one of the things that's really important about like for habitat for brook trout, and this is one of the only streams in Camden that can sustain native brook trout populations. It's never been stocked, and a big part of it is it's cold, but also in addition to being cold, it's like these parts down here that
yeah, they love
trout can like hide. It provides habitat, like a diversity of habitat for them to hide. And like this is one of the trees here that was cut, and it was almost dead. But when trees fall into streams, like a lot of what they do to restore streams that have been damaged is they actually will go in and add wood like that. So, somebody that would look at this as a habitat restoration project probably would have done some different things, some like woody vegetation replacement. But and then this just kind of shows what it looks like when most of the time it's a really beautiful little mountain stream. Up here is one of the only places that we found, or not we, but Native American arrowheads have been found. This whole area would have been sort of intertidal zone at one point, but it's a really special little spot, and called Daly Brook, not it's called Daly Brook. We don't know what it would have been called before that, but there used to actually be a ship, like a shipbuilding wharf here. So Atlantic Avenue, it was also a really popular smelt stream, rainbow smelt. So, but Atlantic Avenue acts a lot like a dam. It's a wall that went right through there, and then there's this culvert, but only under very, rare conditions can fish get back and forth through there. So, in the long term, hopefully there'd be some restoration of, a different kind of culvert that would allow fish to get through. But it's a special spot, and it's town-owned property, so.
It was nice looking.
It really is.
And we took the family there, to your point, over Thanksgiving to talk about the habitat. So,
really?
Yep, absolutely. We walked down there
Did
and
you have your dinner there? Or?
we didn't, but again, we have a NOAA scientist in the family who is very important that this be restored properly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spot.
It's a
I mean,
beautiful.
and the thing is that's really special about Camden, I'll stop after this, I promise, but most places, these streams that we have, like mountain streams, that flow over bedrock like this, it like creates all of these little waterfalls. Most of the time you have to travel into the upper watersheds in order to be able to see something like this. But what Camden has is this really interesting bedrock formation with the way that the mountains come together, and the McGunnick Formation and the Mount Batty Formation kind of collide together. And basically from like the elevation of like Knowlton Street down all around, we have steep bedrock. And so we have streams that aren't like sandy streams. We have natural cascading waterfalls sort of all over the place, which is really just a special thing. So that's that.
Thank you. Audrey, just to clarify schedule, as far as I know, we have one scheduled workshop on December 9th at 1 p.m.,
Yes.
which is related to the tannery site. That's the only one that I have on my calendar. Did I miss something? You don't have to answer today.
I'm just kind of bringing everything up. No, that's it.
Okay, perfect.
Everything else is just speculative.
Speculative.
We're waiting for other parties to confirm.
Yeah, to TBD.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's all. No, that's it. Mark. It's Mark, you're on.
I would like to suggest a motion that we close as select board for this evening and re-adjourn in December.
But not as the wastewater. No wastewater tonight? No, just checking. Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Who wants to see a video of the stream?
Yeah, that'd be nice if you can show it now.
Thank you.
Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bruce.